you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here is the video that you came here for. In terms of the college football playoff, I think you know by now. TCU Michigan's the early game. Georgia Ohio State is the late game. And I don't want to start with the late game because that is the game that everybody tells me they are so excited to watch because it is going to be so awesome. Georgia enters the game as a 6.5-point favorite in the Betfred Sportsbook over Ohio State. And what I keep getting told about this game is two things. One, oh, it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one because we get that incredible Ohio State offense versus that incredible Georgia defense. And then what I also get told is, I know everybody liked Georgia early, but the reports out of Ohio State camp are they have a newfound lease on life and they're ready to go. And they've never been more focused than they are right now. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't really believe that first narrative, and I definitely don't believe that second narrative, so let's get to it. And let's start with the first narrative. The first narrative being, oh my goodness, that Ohio State offense versus the Georgia defense. It's strength on strength. It's 1v1s. It's best on best. It's the immaculate force meeting the immovable object. I'm not totally sure I buy it, and here's why. I think the Georgia secondary is probably a little bit underrated at this point. And I think the Ohio State offense is honestly a little bit overrated. So let's get into it. Let's talk about, let's discuss, let's debate. And I'll start with Georgia. Because when I think about this game, when I think about Ohio State versus Georgia, here's one thing that comes to mind. Everybody tells me how Ohio State's going to move the ball up and down the field against Georgia. But you know what I think about when I think about this game? I think about another game that happened earlier this year, probably Georgia's most anticipated game of the season. It was when the number one team in the country, the Tennessee Vols, yes, Tennessee was number one in that first college football playoff poll, when they went between the hedges against Georgia. Georgia was about a 7-point favorite. And everybody said, how are you going to slow down that Tennessee offense? And do you remember what happened? Tennessee could not do anything. It was absolutely unbelievable to watch a Tennessee team that came in that game averaging about 550 yards of total offense. Yeah, against the Georgia Bulldogs, that Tennessee offense that was averaging 500 plus points per game. They had about under 300, 289 to be exact. Tennessee offense that was averaging about 350 passing yards per game. They had 195 yards. And it was, listen, I think there's an upgrade. There's a degree of more talent at Ohio State. But at the same time, think about that Tennessee team that walked onto the field in Georgia in Athens, okay? You had Hendon Hooker, who I think if he had stayed healthy, probably wins the Heisman Trophy. Elite college quarterback. I don't know how he is as an NFL player, but elite college quarterback. Jalen Hyatt, maybe the fastest wide receiver in college football, wins the Biletnikoff Award, potential first-round pick. Cedric Tillman, back in that game, potential first-round pick. So don't tell me that, oh, Tennessee, it's a completely different ball game. Georgia hasn't seen anybody like Ohio State. Georgia saw the best quarterback in college football this year for my money, outside of Caleb Williams, maybe. And at his best, I don't know if Caleb Williams was even better than Hendon Hooker. And Tennessee had 2 first-round wide receivers, and they could do nothing against Georgia. And so that's the first part to me. I just don't think we realize how good Georgia is, how deep they are. The fact that they were better than just about everybody they played at just about every position. Remember, Georgia didn't play its best week in, week out, but they were great in the games that matter the most. They beat Oregon, a good Oregon team that finished with 10 wins. They beat them 49-3. They also played on top of that Tennessee team that I just mentioned. Tennessee came in scoring 1 million points, doing whatever they do, can't be stopped, won't be stopped. Georgia plays them, and they score 13 points. Only touchdown comes late in the fourth quarter, and they beat LSU by 20 in the SEC championship game, they being the Georgia Bulldogs. And so to me, what stands out to me about Georgia, they're a big game team, and when I think about that Tennessee game, I just think about the fact Tennessee could not do anything on either side of the ball. Georgia was bigger. They were faster. They were more athletic. They were more skilled. Tennessee couldn't open holes on the offensive line. They couldn't get receivers open in the passing game. They couldn't get edge rushing on defense. Ohio State's a little bit better, a lot better maybe even, but are they going to be able to move the ball against Georgia? I'm not sold they are. On the flip side, here's the other thing about Ohio State nobody wants to talk about. Do they have an elite offense, or do they put up elite numbers against bad teams? Because there is a difference between having an elite offense and putting up elite numbers against elite teams. It's funny. I was thinking about Ohio State. To me, Ohio State, and specifically CJ Stroud, and Ohio State fans, have fun with this clip. Make fun of me if you want, if I end up being wrong on this. You know how, like, you're on a diet, you know, like it's New Year's. Think about it. It's New Year's right now, right? And everybody's going to go on their little diet and have a good time. And what's the one thing you don't want to do when you go on your diet this New Year's? You don't want to have empty calories in your diet, right? When you eat your calories, you want to be like the Liver King, well, minus the steroids. You want to be like the Liver King, and you want to eat only the best, the things that are going to help you the most. You don't want to have beer. You don't want to drink your carbs. You don't want to have sugar in your soda. You want to, if you're going to consume calories, you want them to be good calories. Well, Ohio State, to me, their offense is kind of like that. They put up good numbers, but it's a lot of empty numbers. Empty numbers against teams that don't matter. And look at CJ Stroud and look at this passing, because everyone tells me how great this passing game is. Look at this passing game against the elite teams, okay? So I'm led to believe that CJ Stroud is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Ohio State's offense is one of the best in the country as well. Well, here's what CJ Stroud did in his biggest games. 31 of 46 versus Michigan, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I wouldn't say that was elite. Against Penn State, he had 1 touchdown pass, no interceptions, did go 26 of 33, but what were the memorable throws in that game? I don't really remember a lot of them, and Ohio State trailed late into that game, and it was the defense that bailed him out. Multiple defensive touchdowns late in the game. Travion Henderson broke off a big run. Travion Henderson's not available for this game. And then even dating back to week 1 against Notre Dame, CJ Stroud, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 223 yards. So against the 3 best defenses that he faced all year, CJ Stroud, this guy that I'm told is amazing, had a grand total of 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in the 3 biggest games of his career. So don't tell me about what CJ Stroud did against Indiana or Rutgers or a bad Michigan State team or Northwestern or Wisconsin. I don't care who. What did he do against the best teams? He wasn't good. And so that's where he concerns me. I should mention, by the way, 5 of 16 on 3rd down for Ohio State in that Michigan game. 4 of 12 against Penn State on 3rd down, not converting 3rd downs, not converting big plays. And so I look at this game. Why is this going to change against Georgia? And beyond that, that really leads me to the second point about this game, which was what I said a minute ago. Since the season ended, I think most people, when the season ended, they saw this game and they, like me, liked Ohio State. Said we like Ohio State. They're beating Ohio. They're beating Georgia. We like Georgia. I'm all over the place today. Forgive me. Last podcast of 2022. Okay. Been a long year. Not feeling great. Battling the elements. Battling Southwest. Whatever. All right. Let's get back on track here. When this game was announced, I think most people thought, okay, Georgia. Then we did the thing that we tend to do every single year when we have too much time to overanalyze a game. We start to try to talk ourselves into Ohio State, and that's what I feel like has happened over the last few weeks. The best part was, by the way, the one that I mentioned a minute ago. The one where people said, well, you know, the reports out of Ohio State, they really feel like they are playing their best football. And they really feel like they have a new lease on life, and they are not going to let this go by the wayside. Well, here's my question. Why didn't they have that attitude against Michigan, right? I mean, think about the Michigan game this year. What was on the line against Michigan in that game? Had lost to Michigan the year before, lost a chance to make the college football playoff, lost a chance to compete for a Big Ten title. That was all still on the line this year, including the revenge factor, plus they were at home. And they still got destroyed by Michigan. So don't tell me that Ohio State is somehow rejuvenated or they might be rejuvenated, but show me in a big game. Because as I said, why I like Georgia in this game, why I'm picking Georgia to win and cover the 6.5 points in the Betfred Sportsbook is because I need to see something from Ohio State that convinces me that they are who you guys tell me they are. You guys keep trying to tell me, big game team. Here's the bottom line. Last 6 games against top 15 teams, here's what Ohio State has done, and I've shared this stat before. 3-3 overall against top 15 teams. Not top 5, not Bama and Georgia, not the SEC, not Michigan. Top 15 teams, 3-3. In the 3 wins that they have, 2 of the wins they trailed at half, One of the wins they trailed going into the fourth, that was Penn State earlier this year. So essentially, in the last 6 games, the last 2 years that they have played teams with similar talent, similar production, similar skill, Ohio State has had one really good game. That was against the Michigan team that had a Michigan State team last season that had a terrible secondary. So I like Georgia in this game. I don't buy the Ohio State narrative. It's the same as Bama to me. I've been told for all these years, Bama, 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 Bama. Just give Bama time. They'll figure it out. They'll flip a switch. Bama never flipped the switch. And I feel the same about Ohio State.